Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to Shorty's analysis. No Shorty say this week. Something a little bit different coming your way from Shorty SuperCoach. So before I get into it, feel free to give me your thoughts on this new segment and this style of video. I'll be very interested to see what you guys think. How did Richmond lose this match? How did they lose this game? Down by 30 points at three-quarter time. Came charging back. Brandon Ellis's goal should have been the match winner. 21 seconds left. Somehow the Tigers managed to blow it. And as we love to do on the modern day, we love to look at the behind the goals footage, look at it from every angle, dissect the play, and that's exactly what I'll be doing today. I'll be taking a look through some screenshots and the whole footage as well, and be telling you exactly why and where the Tigers went wrong. Of course, it's been well documented in the media by various outlets. I'll be giving it a bit of my thoughts as well, and a bit of a Shorty flavour as well. So before we get stuck into it and have a look at Mundy's goal, I'll play it right now, and you might see why it also could have been Shane Kirsten kicking the match winner.
Here we go, last roll of the dice. Siren tries to get it out. Here they go. Lucky Neale from centre half forward. Needs a mark and he's got it. After the siren. Kick after the siren. What drama at the MCG.
How big a kick is this for the former skipper?
David Mundy. The siren's gone. He needs to kick a goal.
That's sick in the guts feeling at the moment.
They haven't scored a goal since the 9.5-minute mark of the third term. It does not matter. After 120 minutes of bone-crushing football, it comes down to one kick. David Mundy, the 259-game veteran of the Dockers, the former captain, comes in. The kick is on its way. He's kicked the goal and Fremantle win it after the siren. What a game of football at the MCG. David Mundy, stand up, you're a star.
So there you go, absolute heartbreak for Richmond as they managed to lose in a manner that seemingly only Richmond can. An absolute joy for the Dockers in what was an ice-cool finish from David Mundy there. But I just want to work my way through a few screenshots that many would have seen, and many would have seen other analysis on this, but I want to take a bit of a look at it from my own angle now. Of course, we start with this stoppage. There's 21 seconds left. Now, of course, 4 points the margin. It comes down to this passage of play. There's nothing surer. They've got one chance to move it cleanly from the stoppage, Fremantle, and find a target, which they managed to do. But immediately, the coaches put their big guns into the middle. You've got the two ruckmen, Sandilands and Nankervis, both ranked in the top 5 for clearances at their club. And then you've got, for Richmond, you've got Cochin, Dustin Martin and Sean Grigg. And you've got Blakely, Fife and Neale there in the middle for Fremantle. So, statistically speaking, they are the best combination of centre bounce players that those clubs have to offer. They make up the top 4 in centre clearances over the course of the season. All those players are in the top 4. They make it. They are the ones you want in there. And in clearances. Josh Caddy is the only exception. He pips Grigg by 1 clearance overall. But that is clearly the big guns in the middle. So, putting yourself into the mindset of a coach. What are we trying to do? And before I start being an armchair expert and talking about it like, you know, I'm right in there, of course, the pressure in executing these plans can be difficult under the heat of the moment, but that's what leadership is all about. So obviously clubs, Richmond and all the AFL clubs, would practice their own game plans and strategies when there is less than a goal in it with a minute or so remaining. Now, what is unique in this circumstance is obviously that there's 21 seconds remaining. So what's the difference there? A lot of clubs would practice, how do we set up when we've got less than 2 minutes or less than 90 seconds, which basically means you want to be slightly defensive, but you also want to play attacking because you don't want to give them too many looks at the opposition. But with 21 seconds left, basically the only way you can lose this game is to give up a clean stoppage and let them take it into a relatively open 50, which is what happened. So there's 3 outcomes from a centre bounce that can happen. 2 of them would have seen Richmond win, hence they probably go for a slightly more defensive man on man, arm on the opposition player sort of a setup, which is what one man failed to do, which ultimately cost them. Because a lot of people will say, why are we talking about being so defensive? If Richmond win the clearance, they win the game. That's correct, but not too many times would teams plan for just the absolute one stoppage. Of course they would plan for it, but in this instance they've obviously gone in the game mode of defend it within a minute sort of thing. Obviously it would have been better to have more players in the Richmond back line. That didn't happen. So of course, how should Richmond win this game and go about winning it? Win the clearance. You win the clearance, you win the game. Whether you turn it straight over, couple of seconds go from the bounce, the kick travels a couple of seconds, and if you happen to directly turn it over, there's probably 11 seconds left, and that's surely impossible given you'd have an absolute clogged rest of the field to work with. The second outcome, of course, the first outcome, Richmond win the clearance, they win the game. Second outcome, congested situation and a secondary bounce. That also would have wasted enough time for them to win the game. And the third and only option for Fremantle to win the game is to win the clearance, but not only win it, but win it comfortably and clear it out. So that's the setup in the middle. Now, a few areas of concern I'll highlight now, and that's Rioli on the wing. Why is he all on his own? Why does he even need to be there? See the circle on the right? He could quite easily start on a half-forward flank, either side, and press up to the contest. That would be far more effective, because really he's useless out there, because if Richmond get the first possession, they win. And from a wing position, he's only going to get the second or third possession. He's irrelevant, needs to be somewhere far more dangerous that he can affect the contest. Dustin Martin, you can see Cochin, goal side of Blakely. You can see Grigg, goal side of Fife, but Martin has left reasonable amount of body on Neale. Now, probably Dustin Martin, being confident and believing the match winner he is, he's probably feeling that he can win this contest and win the game. But no doubt they had to at least be man on man, arm over the chest, have body contact, especially the fact that he's so close to Sandilands, which basically means when the contest is finished, he's so easily shepherded out of the game, which is exactly what happened. Sandilands easily shepherded him out, which left Neale a nice exit to go around the stoppage. And just finally on the left there, of course you can see two Freo players and the one Richmond guy. The behind the goals screenshot will provide a bit better of a grasp on what's going on there, but obviously there's really no need for that to be there. Of course, the main ones are Rioli and Martin in the middle. They are certainly the costly ones that really destroyed Richmond at the start. Now, this is a pretty blurry sort of a screenshot, but I did want to highlight this. Obviously, Neale, as you saw in the footage, he has broken away, streaming inside 50. This is a screenshot just as he has kicked it. You can sort of see the ball. It is a bit hard, but I'll move on to my next little one, just highlight a couple of players. So Kirsten there, look at the space he's got there. If you need some clarity, go watch the footage and focus on Kirsten. He is making a lead up, and Neale could have quite easily hit him. Kirsten could have had a shot from 45, 50 and maybe sunk him from directly in front. I've highlighted Rance. Now, of course, Rance is in a good position. He's going for the long kick, because let's face it, Neale was absolutely unbelievable. Most players would have blazed away and bombed long. He did not. Of course, Rance is there for that reason, the bomb, long and intercept. But the rest of them were just in the wrong positions. Man on man, that's fair enough. But Grimes, given the fact that Rance is guarding the back deep ball, Grimes needs to guard the space in front, because if it goes in front, as it did, he can chop it off. If it goes deep, Rance will come over the top and spoil. I'm sure that's what they would have been talking about and exactly what Rance would have felt. Now, just even look to the left of Kirsten there. Look at all that space. Really, maybe if Neale was Dustin Martin, he probably could have run a couple another metres and kicked the goal from 50. Had plenty of space to work with. And if you watch the footage, especially from behind the goals, they all run back. They all run back. There's no one coming up at the ball carrier, which could have been Rioli or one of the other Richmond forwards, which I'll touch on in a moment. But the absolute critical error is the space left in the forward 50, which the positioning should have been, regardless of the stoppage talk, the back line should have definitely seen Rance deep, which he was, and Grimes or someone else. It could have been Rioli. It obviously wouldn't be Rioli, but Rioli was a spare. He could have gone, guarded space. Whoever it was, a Richmond extra should have been in front of Mundy, not necessarily Mundy, but anyone, and just be in that space, in that leading zone. That space should have never been there. So that was a clear critical error. It cost them badly, but I felt the real damning thing was that there were so many options. I mean, Fremantle did the perfect play, but it was options to be perfect otherwise. They could have hit up Kirsten. They could have blazed away and kicked a goal, if Neale could probably kick 50, which I don't believe he can. But a fantastic kick from Neale, a beautiful mark from Mundy, and an even more beautiful finish. So, no doubt, there was a bit of a red carpet laid out, but you've still got to execute it. Now, I want to talk about a bit of behind the goals footage. Now, this gives us a great view of the whole ground, aside from the goal square. Now, as you can see, it's a little tougher to see, but I'll put in a couple of little graphics that I had a look at, but you can soak it up and get a feel for it. Look at all the space on the right. Look at all the space between 50 and the centre bounce area. If we add in a couple of there, I've highlighted the space. I've highlighted Rioli there. And you just got to look, there's 3 Richmond forwards. Now, as I touched on earlier, if there's a minute and a half to go, you definitely have 3 Richmond's forwards there, because if you win the clearance, then obviously you don't want to be just giving the ball up, because they've got about a minute to do something dangerous. But the fact that it was that first possession wins the game, or at least gets the opportunity to win the game, Richmond win it. If they bomb it forward, and say whoever it was down there for Fremantle win it, it wouldn't matter, because they mark it uncontested. They've got 10 to 12 seconds to move at the length of the field with an unbelievable amount of players in front of them, the whole lot of the field in front of them, aside from the ball carrier. So I really do feel, in this case, when there's 20 seconds, there's 1 passage of play left in the game. If there's a minute and a half, there's probably 4, 5, 6, depending how it all pans out, passages left in the game. But when you've got 1, there is no need for any forwards, really, to be there for Richmond. Probably have 1, so that if there is an uncontested mark, there is some form of perceived or actual pressure on an intercepting Fremantle player. Fair enough. But certainly to have 3 there was unnecessary. They could have come down, dropped into that space. Rioli should have been dropping into space. Could have been up at the 50 on the back of the square, coming into the centre bounce to deny Neale that space that he found ever so easily. So they were just critical errors. I mean, you got to deny every aspect of them winning the game. Of course, step 1, win the clearance if you're Richmond. That wins you the game. But step 2, and worst case scenario thinking, if Fremantle do win the stoppage, you've got to stop them finding clear space, which Neale did. How do you stop that? You have players coming up from the 50, your forward 50, or back 50 I should say, coming up to interrupt that run and influence the stoppage and a secondary bounce, hopefully, or a hurried kick. And of course, if they do get out and they do manage to bomb long, or just a really good bit of play, they feed it out really well by hand, you've got to deny them leading areas. You know, we saw with Nick Nat win the game against North Melbourne a few years back. He took a clunking mark, an unbelievable grab from about 3 deep. If a player's going to do that, then that's just brilliant, and you can't really stop that. You just got to wear it. But you got to deny space, and it was an uncontested mark from David Mundy, which is just unforgivable. So I move on to another bit of a graphic here and just highlight pretty much what I've just said there. Basically, there's your danger area. I've put it where Neale did run, but it could have been the other side as well, which there was also plenty of space because no one pushed up at the ball. And that was really, you've got to have guys just doing that. I know players float backwards naturally because Neale is coming and going to be kicking to the area that they want to be defending. But you had to have 1 or 2 players, probably Richmond forwards who would come down. You've got to have a couple of those players just storming into the centre bounce to deny that breakaway, which is exactly what happened. And there's where Grimes needs to be, somewhere around that area, or anyone. I don't want to pick on Grimes in particular because maybe when they simulate this, maybe Grimes does take a man. Maybe someone else is loose. But the fact is, if you have Grimes forward of a player, Rance reading the play as he does so well, then you can have guys filling the space, blocking that leading area. Rance, he can read it and do as he please because he reads it so well. But you just got to have it as congested as possible. And it is damning just how easy it was, not just to win that stoppage, because that was an extremely good clearance, but just how easy it was for there to be such space, not just in front of Mundy, but in front of Kirsten and in front of Neale. The Richmond players clearly had a bit of a moment of panic, didn't press up, didn't press to space. It was predominantly man-on-man aside from Rance, and that's exactly how they blew it. So it was a very, very dark 20-odd seconds there for Richmond, and it ended in heartbreak, and Hardwick would be absolutely spewing because, let's face it, they would have trained for that. It's very easy for me to sit here and point out areas they could have done it better, but I'm not an AFL footballer. I don't say I am. I'm here to talk about the game. I feel I can do that well, and let's face it, they would have trained and trained and trained for that sort of scenario, and it's all about executing it under pressure. Whether that's leadership, getting the team in order and getting everyone on the same page, or maybe it was just one player that let the team down. We probably won't know. Only inside the Richmond four walls will we really know where players should have been exactly and who that player should have been. It could have been a couple of guys. It could have been a whole team that just wasn't quite prepared in that 20 to 30 seconds from Ellis goal to actual ball up. Maybe they didn't organise themselves as would have they liked, or as well as they would have liked. And obviously they didn't, because no one wants to leave that much space. So a combination of errors. I'll sum it up there, but feel free to re-watch the footage and have a think about a few of the things I've said. This is a bit of a different video, so hopefully it comes across well. I really enjoy looking at the footage and talking about this stuff, getting your David King on. I really do enjoy it. Very interesting to see different passages of play where players are running from all different angles. So certainly Richmond, aim one was to win the clearance. They didn't do that, and as soon as they conceded that, they had to have a plan and set up in place that if they did lose the clearance, they had a bit of a contingency plan, and that wasn't there. No one pressed up like Sean Burgoyne the other day against Melbourne. No one pressed up to lay a tackle. Neale just burst out of the stoppage, burst out of the clearance and area, and absolutely found a target inside 50, which was fantastic. So should not have been space in front of Mundy, should not have been space in front of Kirsten, should have been far more Richmond jumpers in that back 50. So feel free to rewatch it and have another look at it. Have a look at a few of my little graphics there. Nothing too special there, but it does outline it quite nicely. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I do appreciate you guys having a look, even when some of these videos are a little bit longer. So much appreciated there. I'll be back with my weekend preview, so be sure to check out that as well. And I'll be talking all things SuperCoach in the near future. So once again, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll be back with another video shortly. Subscribe to the channel, give us a comment, give it a like. That'd be fantastic. And I'll catch you soon.